thought he was ending her suffering. He didn't know he was ending his own life as he knew it. And by the time the truth came out, it was almost too late. Subscribe to Soul of Kindness for more heart-touching stories. Daniel Mercer sat in the cold hospital hallway, his hands trembling as he held a pen over a form he never thought he'd have to sign. The paper had 2 words at the top that made his chest collapse. Do not resuscitate. His wife Claire had been lying in that room for 11 days. A car accident, a drunk driver, a Tuesday morning that destroyed everything. They had built together over 14 years. The doctors had been gentle but honest. Severe brain damage, no signs of consciousness, very little chance of recovery. Daniel couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He sat every night in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand, whispering her name like a prayer. But that morning, her mother, Margaret, had walked in with a lawyer at her side. She wouldn't want to live like this, Margaret said, her voice flat. Claire told me years ago, you need to let her go, Daniel. Daniel looked at his wife, the woman who used to laugh so loud the neighbors could hear her, the woman who danced in the kitchen every Sunday morning. And he broke. He picked up the pen. What Daniel didn't know was that Claire had been showing signs, small ones, almost invisible. The night nurse, a quiet woman named Rosa, had noticed. 3 nights in a row when Daniel had stepped out to get coffee, Claire's fingers had moved, slightly, slowly, but they had moved. Rosa had flagged it in the notes. She had told the attending nurse on shift, but somewhere between the paperwork and the busy ward, the message never reached Claire's doctor. Rosa watched from the nurse's station as Margaret walked in that morning with a lawyer. She watched Daniel's shoulders sink lower and lower in the hallway. She wanted to speak up. She was just a night nurse, not a doctor, not family. She told herself it wasn't her place. She picked up her phone and put it back down 4 times. Daniel signed the form. His hand shook so badly that his signature barely looked like his own name. Margaret took it quickly, too quickly, and handed it to the lawyer without even looking at Daniel. It's the right thing, she said. She's at peace. Daniel walked back into Claire's room and sat beside her bed. He pressed her hand against his cheek. It was warm. It was always still warm. I'm sorry, he whispered. I don't know if this is right. I don't know anything anymore. The room was silent except for the soft beeping of the monitor. And then, so quietly Daniel almost missed it, Claire's fingers curled. Just slightly, just barely, around his hand. Daniel stopped breathing. He stared at her face. Her eyes were still closed. The monitor beeped at the same rhythm. He told himself it was a reflex. The doctors had warned him about involuntary movements. He kissed her hand and looked away. Rosa came in for her night shift and immediately checked Claire's chart. The DNR form had been filed. Her stomach dropped. She pulled up the observation notes from the past 3 nights on the system and sat very still for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone and called Dr. Anita Shaw, the neurologist who had treated Claire in the first 2 days, but had since been rotated off the case. I know it's late, Rosa said, but I need you to look at something. Dr. Shaw listened carefully. She asked Rosa to describe exactly what she had seen, the finger movements, the timing, the pattern. There was a long silence on the line. Rosa, Dr. Shaw said slowly, that's not a reflex pattern. Daniel was in the hospital parking lot at midnight, sitting in his car, unable to drive home. Home felt like a word from another language now. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Mercer? It was a woman's voice. Calm but urgent. My name is Dr. Anita Shaw. I was Claire's neurologist in the first 48 hours. I need you to come back inside right now. Please don't ask questions. Just come. Something in her voice made Daniel get out of the car before she even finished the sentence. When he walked into Claire's room, Dr. Shaw was already there, running a small light across Claire's eyes. Rosa stood in the corner with her arms crossed tightly, watching. Dr. Shaw turned around. Mr. Mercer, she said, your wife is not in a vegetative state. The room tilted. She is in a minimally conscious state. It's different. It's significantly different. She is aware. She is in there. And she has been responding. Daniel grabbed the doorframe. The DNR, he said. I signed. I've already contacted the ethics board, Dr. Shaw said. It can be challenged, but we have to move fast. What followed was the longest night of Daniel's life. Paperwork, phone calls, a hospital ethics review. At 2 a.m., a lawyer, Margaret, had hired threatening to hold the DNR order in place. Margaret sat in the hallway, arms crossed, insisting she knew what her daughter wanted. But Daniel stood firm for the first time in 11 days. She squeezed my hand, he told the ethics board. I felt it. I didn't trust myself. But she was telling me something and I almost didn't listen. Dr. Shaw presented Rosa's documented observations. 3 nights. Consistent finger movement. Response to auditory stimulus. Claire's fingers had moved most when Daniel spoke to her. When Daniel's voice played in that room, Claire moved toward it. The board suspended the DNR order by 4 a.m. 3 weeks later, Claire opened her eyes. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't like the movies. She didn't sit up and gasp. She just opened her eyes, slowly, like someone waking from a very deep and very long sleep. Daniel was there. He was always there. Her gaze found him across the room, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then Claire's cracked lips curved, just barely, into something that was almost a smile. Daniel put his face in his hands and wept like he hadn't wept since he was a child. The recovery was long, brutal even. Months of therapy, relearning words, relearning steps. There were hard days when Claire cried from frustration and Daniel sat beside her on the floor and held her, and they both cried together. But she came back, slowly, painfully, beautifully. She came back. 1 year later, Daniel and Claire sat on their back porch as the sun went down. Claire's speech was slower now. She chose her words carefully, but they were hers. You almost let me go, she said softly. She wasn't accusing him. She was just saying it. I know, Daniel said. He couldn't look at her. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought... Daniel. She reached over and took his hand. The same hand she had squeezed in that hospital room. You came back. He finally looked at her. A nurse believed in me when I couldn't speak for myself, Claire said. And you fought for me when it mattered. She squeezed his hand again, firmly this time, fully, with all the strength she had rebuilt. That's enough. That's everything. Daniel brought her hand to his lips. The sun dropped below the horizon. The yard filled with the sound of crickets. Somewhere inside the house, an old song played softly from a radio. Claire stood up, slowly, with effort, and held out her hand. And right there on that back porch, in the quiet golden dark, they danced. The DNR form Daniel signed that day is still in a file somewhere in that hospital. But Claire is alive, because one nurse trusted what she saw. Because one husband listened to his heart when logic told him to walk away. And because sometimes the people we almost lose are the ones who teach us what it truly means to fight. Never stop fighting for the ones you love, even when the world tells you it's too late.